Mike. Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1200 of Toronto Mic'd. Proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Electronic Products Recycling Association. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. And Canna Cabana, the lowest prices on cannabis. Guaranteed. Learn more at cannacabana.com. Joining me today, making his Toronto Mike debut, the first person with physical disabilities to paddleboard across all 5 Great Lakes. It's Mike Shoreman. Welcome, Mike.
Nice to be here with you.
How was that intro? Did I nail that? You're the first person with physical disabilities to paddleboard across all 5 Great Lakes.
I am. I'm the first person to paddleboard across all of Great Lakes in one summer.
And that's just first human to do that.
Yeah.
Have non-humans ever paddleboarded across the...
I'm sure many have.
I'm sure there's like a minx or like some kind of a beaver has done that maybe here. But nice to meet you.
Nice to meet here. Nice to meet you.
And I'm going to ask you some silly questions off the top about your name, because I find it interesting that a gentleman who paddleboards across lakes, and we'll get into how you are differently abled and how you can paddleboard across all 5 Great Lakes. But it's interesting to me that your name is Shoreman. Like, is that real or is that like a stage name?
Oh yeah, well, no, that's the real name. My dad says that I owe him royalties. But
Mike Shoreman, like if I were gonna like invent a character that's gonna paddleboard across the Great Lakes, I would probably name that character Mike Shoreman.
Yeah, no, it's just funny how everything has worked out with that name, and no, it's pretty cool.
I was at Great Lakes Brewery. I don't know, we're going back about a month, but I was there to pick up some fresh craft beer. I make a bike ride there periodically, and I fill up my trailer with fresh craft beer. And I'm there, and I'm talking to Troy at Great Lakes, and he says, right now, upstairs is a gentleman named Mike Shoreman who is inspiring the heck out of all the Great Lakes people. So we were in the same building at the same time, but you were very busy inspiring people. But that was the moment I realized I need Mike Shoreman on Toronto Mike. So that's the origin story.
Yeah. No, this summer we crossed all the Great Lakes. I did it as a mental health awareness and fundraising campaign for a national mental health charity that helps support kids and youth across Canada. And with the name Mike Shoreman, I'm really glad that I made it short, because it's a lot to live up to.
Well, we're gonna get into it. This is just like the teaser. Yeah. But how did you get hooked up with the good people at Great Lakes?
Yeah, so I contacted Great Lakes Brewery to see if there was a potential collaboration with my Great Lakes Crossings last year. Great Lakes Brewery, Great Lakes Crossings.
Makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, no, and they were so welcoming and excited about it. And they said, yeah, we want to create a beer for this, and we'll put $1 from every can towards what you're doing, go directly to the charity.
Right.
And more so than the actual funds that were raised with it was the awareness of it. And people were going like my dad was being contacted saying, "Oh, I got your son's beer."
Amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Let's thank the good people at Great Lakes for stepping up like that, because you're right. If you're gonna paddleboard across all 5 Great Lakes, and Great Lakes Brewery is the ideal partner to have there.
They are amazing people.
So, I mean, they probably hooked you up, but I'm going to give you some fresh cans of Great Lakes to take home with you here today. So thank you, Great Lakes.
Thank you.
And Mike, while I'm giving you gifts here, before we dive into your story, do you enjoy Italian food?
Oh, yeah.
That's a silly question, right? So you're getting a frozen lasagna from Palma Pasta to take home with you as well. So it was worth the trek.
Thank you. I love coming here.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, I'm not even done yet. Might as well do a 3 for 1 here. That's a flashlight. So if you pull out there's a piece of white plastic at the bottom you got to pull out so the battery works. But yeah, that is a flashlight. So I don't know if you're doing late night paddleboarding and you need to see where you're going. You got yourself a Ridley Funeral Home flashlight. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home, and they want you to stay safe. And I don't know if you ever have to measure your paddleboard or see how far away you are from shore, man. See what I did there? This is a measuring tape from Ridley Funeral Home. So you got your beer, you got your pasta, and you got your goods from Ridley, and now you're ready to rock and roll here.
Awesome.
So firstly, though, a couple of quick little notes here before we get into your story. One is that my wife went grocery shopping yesterday with my youngest daughter, and she saw behind her in line, she said, "Oh, Mike, I met one of your friends was in line," and we chatted up, and my daughter got to meet this person's dog, and there was like a great experience between my wife and my youngest daughter and this person. This friend of mine, I just want to shout her out, is FOTM Biff Naked. So Canada's rock goddess was behind my wife in line yesterday, and Biff's been over here a few times, but my wife had never met Biff, and Biff was a sweetheart as always. So shout out to Biff Naked. You Biff Naked fan? You when you're training for these paddle boards, you ever put on some Biff Naked?
So I followed Biff on Twitter this summer, and she gave me a follow back.
Nice.
And no, she's a big mental health champion and supporter of Canadians' mental health, and she was following along and liking posts and what I was up to. It was encouraging. It was really nice.
Well, from where she lives in Mimico, she can see one of the Great Lakes. So we're only steps away from one of the Great Lakes. But we'll get to the story. I just want to, speaking of Ridley Funeral Home, I want to pay my respect and offer my condolences to those who knew and loved Mendelsohn Joe. Mendelsohn Joe, and I don't know, I think I got a few years on you, Mike, but he was like this character, like this artist, this kind of punk, but he wasn't a punk artist, and he was this like musician, and you'd see him on Much Music. Anyway, I always thought, who's this Mendelsohn Joe? When I started Toronto Mike, I always envisioned myself sitting down with Mendelsohn Joe. But sadly, he had Parkinson's, and he basically he planned his exit using the assisted suicide law that we now have in this country. And Mendelsohn Joe left the planet yesterday. Anyway, I just wanted to pay my respect to Mendelsohn Joe. I'll do more in the Ridley Funeral Home Memorial episode at the end of the month. But there's a character who's no longer with us, and he was kind of an interesting Toronto guy, Mendelsohn Joe. And here we go, Mike. My big question before we dive into what you did and why and everything. My big question is, how come you're Mike Shoreman and not Michael Shoreman? How did that process and that decision take hold?
So, yeah, I think I started, people at school kind of decided for me that I was going to become Mike. Right. And then, you start writing it on your assignments and your tests, and and before you know it, you're just going by my Mike. So from like grade 7 on, I was Mike, unless I'm getting in trouble with my mom. Because
your teachers would be reading the class list, right? Which would have your name as Michael. Like, I lived this. You're talking to a Mike. So it always was written out as Michael. So teachers would say Michael. And if you were shyer, I was pretty shy. Like, I didn't want to tell a teacher, no, it's Mike.
Okay.
So it was like, I went by whatever the teacher called me. But at some point, you realize you have some, like, control over this. And you have some power here. And at some point, I remember thinking, I don't feel like a Michael. I feel like a Mike. I identify as a Mike, and I just sort of like, that's it. So sounds like your friends made the decision for you.
Yeah, I feel like they just made the decision. I just kind of went along with it. I think my dad was easy. My mom really likes the name Michael, so even now, like she tries to throw that in there sometimes, but no, we're sticking.
You're sticking
Mike.
with Mike.
Yeah.
And now that you're, let's face it, now that you're a famous guy, you're branded as Mike. You can't change it now.
I can't change it. There's no going back now.
You got that SEO now in Mike Shoreman. Okay, so let's talk about, I want to talk about Ramsay Hunt syndrome. So please educate us. What exactly is Ramsay Hunt syndrome, and when did you realize you were afflicted with this condition?
So Ramsay Hunt syndrome is a reactivation of the chickenpox virus. It is specifically a shingles outbreak that attacks either the eye or the ear, and it's very centralized. And it can be mild to severe. So, like Olivia Chow had a mild case of Ramsay Hunt syndrome. She announced it when she had it because she had facial palsy as a symptom with it.
Right.
And she knew that there would be questions. So she came out and she was very honest about it. But so it can be a mild condition, or it can present many severe elements to it that are disabilities. So, it could include facial palsy. It could include vision impairments, speech impairments, hearing impairments, mobility issues, and every case is different. It's very rare, and I was hit. It attacked me and it hit my ear in November 2018.
So you realized, am I right, that one day you just realized you were having trouble hearing? Like, what was your sign something was wrong?
So for me, it started with a headache, and that headache progressed throughout that day. And it just got more painful and painful and painful.
Right.
And then from there, it went into, the next day I was driving and all the lines on the road started, they weren't straight anymore. They were.
Oh, is that like a form of like vertigo?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So vertigo was setting in at that point. And then the next thing to go in my case was hearing. And I was vomiting, and it was.
Did you think you were having a stroke?
No, I knew something was happening. I just didn't know what. And I started. I went to a walk-in, and
Sure.
then I went to 3 hospitals over the course of a week. And it, unfortunately, like, you can establish what this is with blood work and a CT scan. Unfortunately, what I dealt with was medical anchoring bias. So they're looking at your chart, and the previous person says, "Oh, I think it's this." So then the next doctor sees that, and they're looking at it, and then they go down a different route than what it actually is.
So how long did it take to get your diagnosis that you had Ramsay Hunt syndrome?
So it took about 6 days.
Wow. And all that time you've got the vertigo and the headache and the hearing issue and everything, right?
Yeah, and on the 6th day, I was at my parents' house at that point. I come downstairs and I'm staggering like I've had a night out in college, and I'm weaving, and my mother pulled me in front of like a window that goes from the floor to the ceiling, and she said, "I don't want to freak you out, but take a look at this." And she showed that my face had dropped, like all the nerves in my on the
just
right
like
side
sort of
my
like
face.
a Bell's palsy or whatever, where you see one side of the face falls essentially. Yeah. Okay.
So she said, "Okay, get your stuff. We're gonna go to the hospital."
Time to
so
figure this out.
So they finally did blood work, and they came back and they sent me for a CT scan, and they came back and they said, "Okay, so it's come back as this Ramsay Hunt syndrome," and unfortunately, there is a 72-hour window for treatment. and you've missed it.
Right.
So we're going to put you on the steroids, and we're going to, proceed as best as we can from here. And we're going to send you for an MRI to rule out brain damage, and we're going to, it was very scary.
I can imagine. It sounds frightening, like to even hear you talk about it, because let's talk about you before the diagnosis. It's not like you just sort of picked up paddleboarding one day because you were diagnosed with Ramsay Hunt syndrome, right? You were a paddle boarder.
Yeah. So
tell me Mike Shoreman's paddleboarding life pre-diagnosis.
So I started just for fun.
Where?
I took my first lesson at Cherry Beach.
Okay.
And I did it on a date, and it was, one of my favorite dates that I've ever been on. It was amazing. And the thing that I love most about it, I think, is the falling bit, the wiping out, and then the climbing back on. It's just fun.
Okay, it sounds fun. I've never done it. I want to do it, but
we'll have to go out next summer.
I'd go the Cherry Beach Express. Well, I'm not a great. I mean, it's a wonderful song, but a very serious, unfortunate part of Toronto's history. But shout out to the Puckle Orchestra anyway. But Cherry Beach, you just took to it like, dare I say, a duck to water. Dare I say?
Yeah. So I did a lesson, and then I started doing rentals that summer, and then me and my partner at the time, we got a board, and then that turned into 3 boards, and then there's all these boards, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I want to do this professionally. So I went to Chelsea, Quebec, and I got certified with Paddle Canada, which is the gold standard of instructing. And
whenabouts are we talking? Just so I have a time frame here. Like, is this when is this?
Oh God.
You don't have to give me a specific
2014.
Okay, 20. Okay, so about 4 years before diagnosis.
And so I went through the program with them and became certified. I became an advanced flat water, so not oceans, but lakes and rivers, and then I just built up this business in Durham region and the GTA of lessons and rentals.
With a name like Shoreman, you had to do something with the water. Like this was in your DNA.
Yeah, no. I was actually just going through some pictures with my dad the other day of me and my siblings, our childhood, and my dad pulled out these pictures of me on a surfboard, and I was like, I didn't know about this. and he said, no, it started very young.
No, it's no joke. I know I'm joking about the name Shoreman, but if your last name is Baker, I think you will have this, you'll feel drawn to be a baker. I just think this would be something, even if it's not so conscious, even subconscious, but you'll want to live up to your name. If you have if your last I don't know, but if your last name is candle maker, you might want to actually go on YouTube and see, how do I make candles here? It might be, you might, as a shoreman, maybe it's your dad doing this, he might have felt like water activities with a name like Shoreman, this could be something.
What about your last name?
Well, it doesn't. I think my last name means a gift from God, so that's all we need to say about that. That's why I'm here today, to help you inspire the FOTMs. Okay, so you are a paddleboarder, but now, because I've never paddleboarded, so I don't understand how long you'd go. Is it what was a long paddleboarding for you before you were decided to tackle all of our Great Lakes there?
So my big program that I would do would be the sunset lesson in front of the Toronto skyline. So people would show up at 6 and we would finish at 9. I would do a beginner intro on land, and then we would go out and I would teach for the first 45 minutes, let everybody get their bearings out there and figure out what they're doing, and then we'd go into the Toronto harbor, and what they would do is they would bring their dinner with them, and I would provide dry bags, and they would bring a picnic, and we would paddle over towards Island from Cherry Beach, stop, everybody would have a picnic, and then we'd get back on the water and go out towards CN Tower, the skyline.
Sure.
And at sunset, then I'd pull out I was doubling as the photog,
Sure.
and I'd get these amazing photos of people paddling at sunset, and then
I love it.
and then I'd send it to them.
Honestly,
afterwards.
Mike, this is right up my alley. Like, this sounds amazing. That Cherry Beach to the island and then seeing the skyline at sunset sounds amazing.
It was a perfect date night.
Amazing. Okay. But, that sounds like it's nothing close to going across a Great Lake, but we'll get to that. So tell me about the day. There is a day when you go to visit like an ENT specialist.
Yeah.
And tell me about the news that was delivered to you. This is about 6 months after you were diagnosed with Ramsay Hunt syndrome. What news was delivered to you and how did you react?
Yeah. So at that point, I was, I was really struggling with my mental health, and I was really struggling. I essentially lost my mobility. I went from being very athletic to not being able to walk from the living room to the kitchen.
Wow.
My parents were taking care of me, and I would stay at my mom's for a week, and then I'd go stay at my dad's for a week so that, they could kind of balance work, social life, and then taking care of me on top of that. So I was dealing with the loss of my business, loss of income, loss of social life. Everything that I knew was just gone, and my life was really learning how to walk and figure all that out. And then in April, we went to an appointment at the ENT, and that was a really hard conversation. That was I was told that my paddleboarding was done. You being on water with vertigo and with what I'm dealing with isn't a reality. Driving is out of the question, and even long road trips, and flying would be really challenging. And my dad was in that room with me that day, and it was hard for him to hear. But no, it was a hard pill to swallow.
I can only imagine, but it sounds like being told, you are a paddleboarder, you built a life around this paddleboarding, that was a hell of a date you had at Cherry Beach there, because then you're told essentially your paddleboarding days are over. And it sounds almost like a straw breaking a camel's back. Like, it sounds like you were spiraling regardless, but hearing that news from an ENT specialist pushes you to the brink.
Yeah, no. So there were 2 back-to-back appointments. There was that one, and simultaneously, I was going through all these appointments with physiotherapy and whatnot, but I was also looking for I'd found a facial nerve transplant specialist at Western University, and I was distraught with my face being sunken in and with all the nerves shot. And I was going through these appointments, and I'd go, every 4 or 6 weeks, and they'd look at it, and they came back, a day later, and they said, we're not going to do this surgery for up to 2 years. Like, we want to see what naturally comes back on its own. And to hear that, with how I looked and how everything was incredibly hard. And it just felt like the knocks just kept on coming.
Is it the devil's advocate when Pacino says, "Vanity, my favorite sin"? Right? Because you're a handsome guy. I'm looking right at you, a handsome guy, and being dealt with you're dealing with a lot. Actually, everything's crumbling around you. And one more thing is, I suppose, is that I want to be handsome Mike Shoreman again, and I don't love how I look with this condition.
I think it was more of looking at yourself in the mirror, and with everything that's internally going on, I didn't recognize myself. So to not recognize your own reflection when you're looking, you're like, who is this? And wanting to fix that desperately. So it was more along the lines of that.
So, I was just reading up on your story, which is tremendous, but it sounds like you ended up in a mental health treatment facility.
I did. So I had a breakdown. Those appointments were back to back, within, a day of each other.
Right.
And I had a breakdown, days later. For months, I'd been feeling very isolated and alone. And, I'd be at home and people would call in to check up on me. My mom would call me from work and say, "How are you doing?"
Right.
And I'd say, "I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm doing, I'm watching TV, or I'm doing this." And I wasn't fine, but I was just saying that I was fine and that I was okay. And then it got to the point where I just wasn't anymore. And it's like, I just snapped. We had a big meeting in my family, and it was, out of love. At the time, it was very hard, but they were given, I was given an ultimatum, and they said, we want what's best for you, and we want you to go and do this program and figure out, you can't continue living like this. We want you to be here. And I was at the point where I didn't want to be here anymore.
Wow. Okay. I'm glad you got mental health treatment, and I'm glad we live somewhere where it's available to you readily. That's awesome. And this sounds like an intervention, actually, when you describe it, like it's out of love for you, and you went and got treatment, and now in the story. So I love how we're building the story, because you're at rock bottom now, okay? This is Mike Shoreman. He's never going to paddleboard again. What, they want to wait a couple of years before that procedure that you were describing there, but here you are. So how the heck do you go from that? And we're only in 2019, right?
Yeah.
Like 2019, I feel like that was last year. I know it's not, but like 2019, okay. So 2019, you're at rock bottom.
Yeah.
How do you get back on the board? Like tell me about getting back to paddleboarding.
So I think what was really interesting with the going into the crisis center and staying there was that it not only gave me tools and coping strategies and, things to work with, it also gave me a lot of my confidence back. I'd lost a lot of belief in myself and what I was capable of.
And you lost your mojo.
Yeah. And so a few weeks after I was home again, I opened up my email and there was this email from the Canadian Safe Boating Council. And when I had my business, I'd positioned myself. It's crazy. There were so many paddleboarding businesses, but I became very busy right away because I phoned up the Canadian Safe Boating Council, who does safety water demonstrations for the media ahead of Victoria Day weekend every year. And I phoned them up and I said, "I think you guys need a paddleboarding guy." And they said, "Yeah, we do." And so I jumped in there and I just took it. And it filled, it made me very, very busy and it was great. So I get out of this crisis center and I open up my email and there's that email from them saying, "Hey, Mike, this is coming up on Victoria Day, on the Thursday before Victoria Day long weekend.
Right.
We would love for you to come out and do water safety demonstrations and talk to the media and all that stuff." And I said, and I didn't say anything. I was just looking at it. I was like, "Oh boy." And so I kept it there for a day or two and I just kind of thought about it. And I thought, I don't want to say no to this because even though the doctor said that,
right.
Who knows in the future? And I don't want to ruin this relationship, or I don't want to, separate it. Right. And so I thought about it and I thought, well, what if I brought other paddleboarding businesses and kind of passed the torch to them, but was still involved? So I contacted a friend who had a paddleboarding business in Hamilton and one in Barrie. And I said, "Would you be interested in doing the safety demonstrations that day and being reps?" And so I ended up there that day with them. and they did everything. It was crazy. I didn't even tell them. I show up and my face is all, it's different. And I was, they're filming and I said to them, I said, do you think they've been, like, the OPP was there? And I said, do you think they think that I've been drinking? Cause it's like 8 o'clock in the morning. And because I was staggering with how I was walking, and but they did it. They did a great job, and then all the media trucks pulled away and they left, and it was just us, and we were there with paddleboards, and they said, "Do you want to try getting back on a paddleboard for a few minutes?"
So who said that? Your friend?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a shout out to Ringo Starr, who said you get by with a little help from your friends. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so when they said you want to get back on the paddleboard, is your guttural instinct to be like, I'm not allowed to do that. I can't do that. Like, how did you react to that question from your friend?
I was scared.
Sure.
Because vertigo is still part of my condition. When I turn my head left or right or up and down, I can feel it inside my head. It's like being on a carousel. So I was very nervous about what if I fall, what if I go underwater, and yeah, like how is this all going to work? But they were very, they were very good about it. Like they, the one paddleboard with my friend on it was right beside me. She was holding my hand. Nice. We were on a very...
You want to shout out these friends? Like maybe name check them? Or
yeah, Sarah and Allie.
Okay,
yeah.
Sarah and Allie.
Yeah.
Nice.
And they... Yeah, she held my hand and it was a beautiful sunny day on a very flat surface of water. And there wasn't any wind, and it was warm. It was perfect. And I lasted 3 minutes at just sitting down. But that 3 minutes was enough to light a fire.
That your mojo came back.
Yeah.
I love this story. Okay, so you sit on this board for a few minutes with a little help from your friends, even though the ENT specialist had told you like this was a non-starter, you're done with your paddleboarding, but you sit on that. So it's one thing to sit on a paddleboard for a few minutes, okay, which is awesome for you and your journey. But look, that's 2019. I guess that's near Victoria Day, and here we are in 2023, early 2023. And we're talking about how last summer you paddleboarded across all 5 Great Lakes, okay? So how do you go from 3 minutes sitting on a paddleboard to, I want to do this?
So I used incremental wind building that summer. So we did 3 minutes that day. The next week, I called up a friend who had a paddleboarding business out in Ashbridges Bay. And I said, would you mind if I came down? And she said, of course, come down every week. So the next week I went out and I was on a board for 5 to 7 minutes. The week after I was out for 10 minutes sitting down, and we just kept on building that.
Right.
And every time I did it, it would knock me. I'd be on the couch for an entire day the next day, just exhausted and not feeling good. This is a neurological condition. It can make you sick if you're feeling, different things affect it. The barometer affects it. Air pressure affects my condition. So we just used incremental wind building throughout that entire time, and it built up to July. And July, we knew that I was going to try to stand up. So we went out to Cherry Beach and we went into the Toronto Harbor at sunset. And I stood up for the first time, and I wiped out right away. But I got back up and I stood up and I lasted for a few minutes. And that was probably the big one for me. Whereas I saw it. I saw that it was possible. I saw that it was what I thought wasn't a reality could be, and I saw the potential. And it was meaningful to do it in that location at sunset, because that's what I used to do.
Love it so much. But where do you concoct this this idea that you're going to go take your journey across the lakes? Like when did that germinate in your mind?
So so I stood up in July. In that summer, a friend of mine sent me something, and she said, no, actually it was in the spring. I just got out of the crisis center, and I went to visit her at work, and I was still using a cane. I was still using a cane to walk. I had an eye patch on to protect dust particles and stuff from going in my eye, because I couldn't close my eye.
Right.
So, I looked like the Penguin and Two-Face all at the same time. and I walked in.
Super villain.
Yeah. And I walked in, and she just looked at me and she said, "You're not done. What are we going to do with you?" And I was like, "Look at me." And she said, "I'm going to send you this thing that I want you to look at. And I think you have a story that you need to share with somebody, like so take a look at this." So I go home and I look at it, and it's this speaking thing, this competition, and I go through the form and I fill it out, and I'm not really paying attention to it, and I press submit.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I know, the organizer contacts me, like within 24 hours, and she's like, "Yeah, we want you to do the story of getting knocked off your paddleboard and climbing back up.
Yeah.
And we love this message of mental health and resilience and all of this." And she said, "I'm going to send you all this stuff." So she sends me it. And it turns out that it's North America's largest inspirational speech competition.
Oh, wow.
And these are all TED Talk speakers and corporate speakers and, people who go into corporations and organizations. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, these speeches have gone viral and got millions of views. But at the same time, I remembered that I went into that mental health treatment facility. I can do hard things.
Right.
It built a lot of confidence. And I also realized that all my competitors in this were all going to be, working. And I was at home and I had time on my side, so I could write. So I wrote this speech, and my goal was to inspire maybe, 3 or 4 people in the audience that night in Toronto. And there were, in an audience of 400. And I ended up winning. Woo! And that speech went viral and got, Ashton Kutcher shared it and Jay Shetty shared it, and it just got millions and millions of views.
Wow.
So it connected me with, people from all around the world who were struggling with either their physical or mental health. And it kind of gave me a platform. I was suddenly being invited to do media interviews and all these things. And from there, I contacted Jack.org, which was a national youth mental health charity. I saw their shirt online and it said, "This is what a mental health advocate looks like." And even though I didn't feel like one at the time, I thought, I want to support them. The proceeds of this will go towards helping put mental health programs in schools for kids. And throughout,
which is a great program. Like,
it is.
Just stop right there. Like, what a worthwhile endeavor.
Yeah. And I kind of identified with it, with my mental health journey, because I was being looked after. With my physical and mental health recovery, I was being looked after by my parents, and I felt very childlike. So I kind of identified with kids and young people who are struggling with their mental health. So I contacted them and I said, "Look, the speech thing just blew up. I'm doing all these interviews. What if we collaborate? Like, what can I do for you?" And they said, "Well, do you want to do an event?" So we did an event. And I thought, maybe 20 people would come out, and we had 200 paddleboarders from all over Ontario come out. Wow. And it just became this thing. And then the next year, I was looking at it and I was like, okay, we've got 200, we've got something to build on here. We can, let's double this. Like, let's get 400, 500 people out. And then the pandemic hit. And I believe we were days of going into a lockdown in Toronto. And,
March 2020.
There was a lot of fear and apprehension and uncertainty, and people just weren't going out. And that 200 the first year went to, I think we got about 30.
Right.
And I was so, in many ways, I was happy that it went forward and that we still did it, but I was also crushed because I thought, okay, this pandemic's just kind of come in and like decimated this event.
Dare I say it took the wind out of your sails, Mr. Shoreman.
Boom.
I'm full of it. I'll be here all night.
Yeah. So we went back to the drawing table.
That's called pivoting, by the way. You're supposed to say it. We pivoted.
Yeah, that's a paddleboarding term, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you can pivot. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really do want to try this paddleboarding.
I'll teach you how to pivot.
Okay, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah, which came first, the paddleboarder or Ross and Friends pivoting?
Right, with the couch, right? I get that. But I only get that reference from memes. Like, I actually never saw this episode of Friends, but I know that reference from, Friends never took with me. Like, I guess because I was really into Seinfeld at the time.
Seinfeld's so good.
And Friends seemed so, like, it felt like Full House compared to Seinfeld. Like, it just felt kind of, like, silly. I don't know.
That's because they're all terrible on Seinfeld.
Yes, right, exactly. Okay, but I digress here. So now you're pivoting due to pandemic.
Yeah, so that fall we started planning, and the event happened, and we raised quite a bit of money for them, and then I went back, and the after event is just as important as the event, because you look at all the things that were done right, all the things that were done wrong.
Oh, postmortem.
Yeah. And
I was in the corporate world for many years. I attended many a postmortem. Okay.
Yeah. Evaluations. And I just said it to them. I said, we have to do something that's newsworthy, that grabs people's attention.
Right.
And they said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, what if I become the first person with disabilities to paddleboard from one country to another? And they said, what does that look like? And I said, I have no idea. And
but how did you know it hadn't been done? Like, did you is there?
I looked it up.
Okay, you looked it up. Okay.
Yeah. So I was looking, like, people who have disabilities have swam from one country to another, and I was very aware of that.
Right.
But I was like, what if we do it on a paddleboard?
Right, and that's your baby anyways.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they said, well, where do you see this happening? And I thought, well, obviously it's going to be Lake Ontario. It has to be from New York State. We're going to go from New York State into Toronto. Unfortunately, the planning wasn't, I kind of went running into 2021. Mm-hmm. We decided that I was going to go from Rochester to Toronto.
Sure.
If that had happened, that would have been the longest crossing by any athlete in Canadian history.
Wow.
Of Lake Ontario.
But I like this ambition. Like, you're not trying to cheat anything here. You're going to bite off more than you can chew, and then you're going to chew it.
Yeah. I went running into it. And I didn't realize the amount of planning that was needed or required, and what I would need to set myself up for success and set them up for success. So we planned it. I built a small team. We crossed over by boat from Belleville over to Rochester, and we were going to do that, and we set out, and what we didn't anticipate was that bad weather on the Atlantic. So that weekend, a hurricane hit New Jersey. And what it did was it went over New York State, and it ended up triggering 9-foot, 10-foot, 11-foot
Wow.
waves
Wow.
while we were out there. So the first actual day of, there were 3 days, and the first day of 3, the first day was rough. There were a lot of learning lessons, but the second day was, I was watching these 40-foot support boats go up these waves and then come crashing down.
Right.
And I didn't realize that all of my team were inside vomiting.
Oh my God.
And they were prepared to go as long as I would last. They were relentless. They were, very supportive. And then it got to the point where it just got too violent and too unsafe.
Right.
So we did have to make the call at the end of the second day of 3. And that was very hard. That was I felt not only was I letting down Jack.org, and I felt like I was letting them down. I was letting all the people who'd pledged and supported, and
yeah, you feel like you can't fail because so many people are depending on you, and you have like probably media prepared to be there when you hit shore.
Yeah, no, we ended up staying that night in Murden, New York, and we drafted an entire statement that I would, we decided we were going to stay that night and then take the boat over the next day into Ashbridges Bay. And we had alerted all the media that I would make an announcement when I got to shore that day, and that was really hard to do that day.
So just to set things here, we're in 2021 right now. So what month was this attempt?
August.
So August. Okay, so August 2021. You do not succeed in your endeavors there, but we all know what's waiting on the horizon on my wife's birthday in 2022. So in August 20th, 2022, you're going to make history. So when do you do another pivot and say, hey, let's try this and do the 5 Great Lakes? And like, what does that entail? Because my brain's having trouble computing. Like, that seems like a lot of paddle boarding.
It does. It does. So that distance of 100, that distance that from Rochester to Toronto, that would have been 140 kilometers.
Okay.
So I took about, I would say 4 to 6 weeks after 2021 and just kind of, licked my wounds, and
sure,
there might have been a little bit of moping, just a lot of self-care.
Right.
And at that 4-week mark, I contacted, the boat drivers and some of the team and said, what did we accomplish out there? What are the numbers? And they said, you did 70 kilometers over 2 days. And I said, okay. And then I Googled Vicky Keith, who swam all the lakes in 1988.
Right. I remember that.
And I pull up all of her information, and I'm looking at these charts of each of the lakes and time that she left and time that she crawled out the other side and the distance.
Right.
And I'm looking at the 2 of the 5 that she did. I'm looking at the 2 longest, and it was Lake Michigan and Lake Huron were the longest, and they were 73 and 76. And
okay, you can do this.
And so I'm looking at that, and I'm like, okay, well, we just went the wrong way.
Right.
Like had we gone Marilyn Bell's route or Vicky
Right.
Keith's crossing or any of these, that would have been, 48, 50 kilometers. That would have been accomplished.
Right.
We just went the wrong way. So then I'm entertaining this in my head, and I go back to the team, and I'm like, well, what if we this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that we come back and we do all the Great Lakes, and they were like, oh wow, okay. so they're like, well, it was hard, some of those, that boat captain that did that initial first crossing in 2021, he said, "Why I can't be available. Like for each crossing, you're essentially taking 5 to 10 days to be on site, ready to go whenever the weather is optimal."
Right.
And even when that happens, there are swimmers who do that. There was a swimmer last year who tried to cross Lake Erie, I believe, 8 times. The weather can change on a dime.
Right.
So there is no guarantee. But I said, okay, well, what are you available for? And he said, well, I'm available for Lake Erie, which would be the first, and I'm available for Lake Ontario. So my job became finding boat captains and team support teams and figuring out how this all worked, and training, that 70 over 2 days was going to have to become 70 within about 35 hours, for those long crossings. And we were going to try to cross all these Great Lakes and raise a lot of money.
So you have this big idea,
Yeah.
and it's, I know what you mean. You got to think big to get the attention in this world of the media and other people. Like you really do. So I don't want you to look back. Like there's a picture of me in the Toronto Star, and I'm only pointing to it because I recorded this, it was almost 6 hours, this 1000th episode of Toronto Mike. You're, by the way, milestone episode, 1200. That's a good number for you, Mike. 1200, good for you. Okay, so when I did this, I remember talking to people about how I'm going to do this monster episode for 1000. It's going to be 6 hours, and everybody, including my wife, were like, no one's going to listen to that. I remember Freddie P from Humble and Fred is like, no one's going to listen to 6 hours, and I'm like, you're missing it. Okay, I don't care if anyone listens. It just needs to exist because it gets attention. And then I just point to the 4-color photo front page spread, and I said that only happened because I thought big and did something ridiculous. So you're gonna paddleboard across all 5 Great Lakes because that gets attention in this world when there's a million things happening all the time. How do you cut through that noise? Fine, I'm doing something big. I'm gonna paddleboard 5 Great Lakes.
Yeah, and I knew that it would grab the attention. I didn't know the extent of it or where it would go, but I knew that eyes were going to come. There was frustration in parts of it, because when you announce that when you're doing something, I got a lot of media attention in 2021. They all showed up, and then I announced, we announced that I'm going to attempt to do all the Great Lakes, and there was this kind of silence.
Is that like the boy who cried wolf?
Yeah. And
we're not falling for this a second time.
And there
Shoreman.
were, and my media team, there were people, it got back to me, what was being said. And there were journalists who were like, yeah, we'll see where that goes. We'll see how it goes. And it all got back to me, and it was frustrating. I was very frustrated, parts of it. It was tough. And I was just like, just cover the story to get it out so that people know where to pledge and people know how to support. And there were parts of it that were really frustrating.
So because this is 5 Great Lakes, and I'm guessing, you'll tell me what is the order you do it? I'm guessing Ontario is your last one?
Yeah, so we wanted to do Lake Ontario, the second attempt of Lake Ontario as the finale.
Which is smart, of course, because all the media is here already.
Yeah. So
get your butts to Harbourfront, let's go.
Yeah, we could have, in the 2021 we were going to land in Ashbridges Bay. In this one, we had to jump through hoops with the city to become the first athlete that would land inside the harbor. And that was really interesting. So much paperwork.
Interesting.
But
so why is that? Is that you needed special permits to have
from the Port
essentially
Authority?
An event there, or what? Yeah, Port Authority.
Yeah,
okay.
Port Authority, parks, Toronto Parks, because we took over HTO Park.
Wow.
Just so many different.
Well, heck, I think the way if the large rubber ducky can take over HTO Park, maybe Mike Shoreman can have it for his.
I paddleboarded out to that thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That was I took a photo of it, and it's my most viral tweet of all time. Was a tweet about the rubber ducky, but it was quite the attraction. So you paddleboarded to the rubber ducky when it was at HTO Park, or when it was
in Toronto Harbor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
So the media, though, like they don't have to be there for when you finish each lake. It's that last one, right? Like that's the big one.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the crossing started in May.
Okay.
And the planned order.
I'm ready.
So the planned order was different than the actual executed order.
Okay, tell me the planned order, and then tell me why was it?
So it was going to be Lake Erie, Lake Huron. Mm-hmm. So it was going to be jumping in distance from one lake to a lake 4 times as big.
Okay.
Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, Lake Ontario. We had to switch, and it went Lake Erie, Lake Huron, Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, and it flipped those 2, 3, and 4.
So why did they flip?
So it flipped because we were watching the weather on Lake Michigan, and it just wasn't cooperating.
Gotcha.
And we were even for 10 days it wasn't cooperating, I made the call and said to my team, okay, we're just going to switch. We're going to get in the car. We're going to drive to Wisconsin. That was 20 hours. And we're going to cross from Wisconsin into Minnesota.
Okay.
And then at least we'll have Lake Superior in the rear view, and then we can just sit and play the waiting game, and we'll just wait as long as this takes.
Do you mind if I play a little news clip about you successfully paddleboarding Lake Ontario, the 5th of the 5 Great Lakes? Let me play this, because then it'll give me a chance to turn off the dehumidifier back there. So, So let us listen to... Make sure I've got it here. I do, in fact, have it here. Look at me. Here we go.
Mike Shoreman has made history. The Canadian paddleboarder is now the first athlete with disabilities to cross Lake Ontario and the first person in history to cross all 5 Great Lakes in one summer.
Canadian young people are watching this, and they're seeing Canadians show up, and they're seeing that people care.
Shoreman landed at Toronto's HTO Park, marking the significant conclusion to his summer journey, all in support of youth mental health. This final 52-kilometer crossing took about 21 hours to complete after leaving from Youngstown, New York on Friday.
A lot of this was a mental health journey for me, and I think in a mental health journey, a lot of people feel alone, and I don't feel alone today, and I'm really grateful, and thank you.
Shoreman was an avid paddleboarder when he was suddenly diagnosed with the neurological condition Ramsay Hunt syndrome in 2018. He lost his mobility, the right side of his face became paralyzed, and he dealt with serious vision, speech, and hearing problems. But his passions kept him motivated. He retrained his brain to walk and paddleboard again, now working with jack.org to raise funds for youth mental health projects.
I myself had a mental health breakdown a few years ago, and I feel it's a responsibility to give back. I hope that it helps save young Canadian lives and helps young Canadians feel not so hopeless and not so alone like I felt a few years ago.
He began May 29th, crossing Lake Erie in 7 hours, then completed a 28-hour crossing of Lake Huron on June 13th. On July 5th, he crossed Lake Superior and made the trip across Lake Michigan on July 27th, all of which made history. Even Hurricane Hazel was on hand to congratulate Shoreman as he arrived in Toronto.
He sets an example for young people to show that if you're determined and committed, you can do it.
Organizers at jack.org say Shoreman's fundraising will help thousands of children across Canada.
This will be going to our mental health programs for young people. That includes chapters across the country. It includes summits across the country where young people come together to speak about mental health.
He says the goal of this historic project is to challenge stereotypes and prove people with disabilities can do absolutely anything they set their mind to. Now, he's also very passionate about youth mental health projects. He's working alongside Jack.org and has raised over $60,000 for mental health services right across Canada. Reporting from HTO Park in Toronto, I'm Leah Johansson, City News.
You did it, Mike. Like, congrats, you did it. Like, doesn't mean you thought it. It's what you thought big, but you executed and you delivered, and you should be very proud of yourself.
Thank you.
And you raised money, you raised awareness. I mean, heck, that clip was great. There's even a cameo from the late Hazel McCallion in there. Like, that's cool.
She's a star.
Wow. Well, I bet you, she sadly passed away, but I bet you right up until the final days, Hazel could have paddleboarded Lake Ontario. What do you think?
Oh, I bet she would. She'd probably do it on rollerblades on the paddleboard. She was amazing.
She was amazing. She was a force. Okay, so congrats. Like, I guess I'm still, like, my brain is processing the fact that you're told by this ENT specialist that you're never going to paddleboard again. And not only do you get on a paddleboard, but you did something that had never been done. Forget being, the word disabled? That's an okay word with you, disabled?
Yeah, like, so it's weird. I have an interesting relationship with that word. I identify as a person living with disabilities. I still have hearing and vision impairments and vertigo. Vertigo is a big part of this. Do I consider myself disabled? No, I live with challenges that present themselves. Some days, every day. Some days I have great days and bad moments. But no, it's it's been
You have disabilities. Yeah. You don't consider yourself disabled.
Yeah.
How are you today? Like tell me today as we speak here, how are you feeling?
I'm having a really good I'm having a good day today.
Okay, because you got a great sweater on. We will take a photo after this that people will see, but I want to let people know I really like the St. Pat's, the Toronto St. Patrick's sweater you're rocking today. So. And the Great Lakes beer that they did for you, which is really awesome for Great Lakes to do that. What was the name of this beer?
So it was called the Five Crossings Pale Ale. And we originally, they designed everything. They asked for my input. There was
did you meet up with maybe I'm thinking maybe Mike Lackey or something, one of the did you get a chance to taste different
I did. I actually went in and poured the hops in and stirred it. I helped create it.
Amazing.
They had a sunset, and then they had a paddleboarder going across some water, and then it had Five Crossings Pale Ale.
Amazing.
And it was one of their fastest sellouts. And they actually went and they did another launch of it for when I crossed the final one.
Did you keep yourself a can or two? Like, did you hold on to one?
I have a can in my office. Yeah.
So you'll never open that one though. That's
that one's decorative.
That's decorative. So again, shout out to Great Lakes Beer. They've been great supporters of this show, and I love that they supported what you did. And congrats again to you. But what's next for Mike Shoreman? Like, it's like you climb Mount Everest. What do you do now? Go to space?
Yeah. So I'm actually planning another crossing right now. And it is for an organization that supports children with disabilities. And it is to help them reach their fundraising goal to make their facilities more accessible for their clients and the families that they support. So I'm working with them on that. And I was, for the last 10 months, a film crew has been following me and documenting the crossings of the Great Lakes and the Canadian mental health crisis. So we've partnered, this was for Jack.org. I've now partnered with CAMH Talk Suicide Canada, Sick Not Weak, a bunch of them.
that's Michael Landsberg.
Yeah.
By the way, a gentleman who decided I'm a Michael, not a Mike.
Oh, did he?
Because Mike fixes his car. Okay, and I love this guy, but don't forget that, Mr. Mike Shoreman. This has been Mike Schreiner was here recently, so was Mike Daly. So like I've had this, as you know, there's lots of us Mikes. In fact, I was recording a Michael interviewing a Mike on Monday morning. Like there's just it's an unbelievable amount of guys in their like 30s, 40s, and 50s named Mike. It's unbelievable. But Michael Landsberg's one of the good Mikes, but he doesn't want to be called Mike. He wants to be called Michael.
Yeah.
So you're working with Cam H, which is wonderful.
So the 90-minute feature-length documentary on the Canadian mental health crisis, featuring Michael Landsberg and all these people.
Excellent.
This will have Hazel McCallion. There's a thing with the Prime Minister in there. Like it's crazy. This will enter the Canadian and International Film Festival circuit in September.
So you're going to be everywhere again. We're going to have to make you another beer, I think.
Oh yeah, we'll call it.
I'll be calling Troy right after this with some ideas.
Okay.
And Mr. Lackey, if you're listening, invite me to these tastings. Okay, I want in on the ground floor here. Wow. Hey, I'm curious. Like when you're recovering from the training and stuff, is CBD a part of your recovery?
CBD. Yep. CBD oil.
I'm using that as an opportunity to shout out Canna Cabana because they won't be undersold on cannabis or cannabis accessories. There's over 150 locations across the country, and much like Great Lakes and Palma Pasta and Ridley Funeral Home, Canna Cabana helps keep this podcast going so I can shine a light on Mike Shoreman and all the amazing, inspiring things that you've been up to as you overcome these challenges. Last but not least, on that note, if you have any old tech, like be it, an old printer or an old smartphone, any old tech at all, don't throw that in the garbage, my friend. You got to go to recyclemyelectronics.ca and find out the nearest depot to bring it to, which will safely recycle. There's a lot of chemicals and a lot of garbage in there that you don't want to put into the landfills. So to safely recycle your old tech, recyclemyelectronics.ca. Absolutely. All right, so when you said you're going to do another crossing, what are you crossing? Grenadier Pond? Like, what is the next?
So we haven't
because I think I could do that.
We haven't actually announced it yet.
Okay, it's a secret.
We will be announcing it in May. What the actual crossing is.
Okay, what are we in now? February? Okay. Do you want to give me a clue? Like, I don't know how you get bigger than Superior unless you're going to cross an ocean here.
I think you would probably be safe to look at Vicky Keith.
Okay. That's a big clue. When I go to Vicky Keith's Wikipedia page later today, I'm gonna follow the breadcrumbs and I'm gonna come up with it. So, Mike, as we leave, it sounds like you had a tremendous team behind you, and that support system was there for you. But they were supporting you because your mojo came back and you believed in yourself. Can you, when you look back at that, that 1-2 punch you received, and you as you described it as a breakdown, but like when you look back and you realize where you are today. Are you self-aware that you have, picked yourself off the mat and not only, carried yourself up, but you've exceeded, there's no other human on the planet who has done what you did, which is paddleboarded across the 5 Great Lakes in one single summer. Are you self-aware that you're pretty much, you talked about being a supervillain? You're a superhero, man. Are you aware?
Oh, no, it's just, I'm just a crazy adventurer who never quit, never stopped, and I'm just very grateful that I have the support of that. Not everybody has the support, but I got, and I've been very fortunate in having a supportive family and friends, and then building this amazing team. 38 people.
Wow.
Were part of this, and they were feeding me every half an hour
right.
and documenting how often I was going to the bathroom out there and like crazy stuff.
How many calories does it take to cross one of these Great Lakes?
Thousands.
It's like when you heard about like the Tour de France guys and they're like, oh yeah, I consumed 9,000 calories on that ride. It's like, whoa, okay, that's for me, man.
Yeah, like a 30,000 calorie crossing. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so much. Will you come back? It sounds like this mystery crossing, which I'm going to crack that code later when I go to Vicky Keefe's wiki page. But you got to come back and tell us about your next conquest here, because this is all very inspiring. Could you, like, I'm curious, would that chickenpox vaccine have prevented you from getting this in the first place, your syndrome there?
Yeah. So I actually started the process of lobbying to lower the age of the shingles vaccine.
What is the age right now?
It is senior age. You have to.
I'm almost there.
I believe it's 50.
Okay, I'm so close I can touch it, but it should be much lower because
yeah.
you of course it's like shingles, so it's
Yeah.
If you could prevent yourself from getting that virus, then you would not have to worry about that syndrome.
Yeah, no, we started, I went to Queen's Park and met with officials and we were exploring that. And then all of a sudden that, the pandemic happened and the conversations of vaccines, changed and nobody wanted to talk about the shingles, but nobody cared about it.
Yeah, they had bigger fish to fry, but they got to put that back on the front burner.
Yeah.
Mike, thanks for doing this, buddy. This is great. You're now a wonderful FOTM, and I can't wait to take that photo with you. But I appreciate you telling us this story because it's inspiring AF, and I'm going to go run through a wall right now. I just have to pick a wall that won't hurt too much. So, okay. But thanks for doing this, man.
Awesome. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of our 1200th episode. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at torontomike.com. And Mike, are you at Mike Shoreman on Twitter? Oh, you don't even need the headphones because...
yeah, I'm at Mike Shoreman.
So follow Mike on Twitter at Mike Shoreman so you can find out what the heck his next adventure entails. Our friends at Great Lakes Brewery, who made the 5 Lake Crossing beer, they're at Great Lakes Brewery. They're at Great Lakes Beer on Twitter. Follow Great Lakes Brewery at Great Lakes Beer. Palma Pasta's at Palma Pasta. Recycle My Electronics are at EPRA_Canada. Ridley Funeral Home are at Ridley FH. And Canna Cabana, they're at Canna Cabana_. See you all tomorrow when my special guest is former Much Music VJ, Craig Halkett. See you all then.
Maybe the one who doesn't realize there's 1,000 shades of gray. 'Cause I know that's true, yes I do. I know it's true, yeah. I know it's true. How about you? Oh, they're picking up trash and they're putting down roads. And they're brokering stocks, the class struggle explodes. And I play this guitar just the best that I can. Well, maybe I'm not and maybe I am. Who gives a damn, because everything is coming up rosy and green. Yeah, the wind is cold, but the smell of snow warms me today. And your smile is fine and it's just like mine and it won't go away. Everything is rosy and gray. Well, I've kissed you in France and I've kissed you in Spain. And I've kissed you in places I better not name.